Howdy folks, Spencer here, and today I want to talk about the Terran Trailblazer. This is a ship that has just dropped into the Sea Store via the 12th anniversary bundle, but it is available to acquire on its own. You can acquire it for 3,000 Zen normally. You can use a T6 coupon on it also, including the one that we got free from the anniversary event. During the initial launch period, the ship will be 2,400 Zen, and if you factor in the Zen charge bonus that is going on for the time period this video is coming out, through a few more days afterwards, it's going to roughly be $20 to acquire the ship. But as I said, if you have a T6 coupon, including that free one that you can get in the promotions tab, if you log in during the anniversary event, you can get this ship for free. So starting off, just going to go over the new skins for this. This dropped a bunch of mirror skins that are just, different versions of the existing skin. The Trailblazer skin is new, I believe. Yeah, so the Trailblazer skin, you can have it with or without the mirror stuff. I'm just going to quickly go through these. I don't usually focus on the visual side of things. I usually focus more on the performance side, but I think some of these skins are nice, and if some of these will require you have other versions of the Janeway unlocked, like I believe the warship mirror will still require that you have the 10th anniversary bundle. I don't know if this will unlock that, and I can't tell you because I already had that unlocked. So this is what it will by default come with the Trailblazer mirror, but you can turn off the mirror aesthetics if you want. But for me, I am going to put it back to the Intrepid mirror skin. I like the original Voyager, so we're going to go with that. So I want to go and dive into some comparisons that I have already talked about a couple of times on some streams and some of the past content pieces, in which this ship is basically a clone of the Janeway promotional ship that we got just about a year ago, really. So let me fly off here so we don't hear people doing the Omega minigame. Okay, I'm gonna pull up the Janeway. I've got this open on a separate client that is over on the Triple Test map. So the Janeway came out March 4th of last year, and this ship came out, about just under a year later. So let's take a look at the stats of these two ships. Starting off, you see the Janeway is a 4.2, the Trailblazer is a 4.3. They have the exact same console layout, same amount of devices. The mastery packages are the exact same, with the exception of the trade, of course. Now, the stations are where it becomes really apparent that these two ships are basically the same ship. Both have a commander science with command. Both have a lieutenant commander tactical. Both have an ensign engineer. And then the last two seats are where things got flipped. So on the Janeway, you had a fixed lieutenant commander science and a lieutenant universal with miracle worker on it. And on the Trailblazer, that lieutenant miracle worker seat was changed from a universal to a fixed tac, and the lieutenant commander science got turned into a lieutenant commander universal. Now with the Janeway, basically every build I saw ended up needing to make that lieutenant a tactical. So to me, this just makes this ship more flexible because that tac seating was already going to be a tac seating. But having that lieutenant commander universal does give you increased flexibility if you wanted to, run more engineering abilities, if you want to run more tac, whatever. For me, I kept it as a psi and basically have, a very, very comparable bridge officer layout between the two ships. The Janeway build here is a bit dated because when I loaded this up, it's from ages ago, but nowadays I'd probably be running it something like this. And if you do want to see this build it's on. There's been some discussion about the Trailblazer over on the Builds Discord, but I will have a picture in the description of the build that I have on here for how I set mine up. I set mine up as a like a meta tort boat, but this ship is very flexible, but we'll get into that later. I'm getting off track. So these ships are very comparable, and that becomes much more apparent if I pull up a spreadsheet. So this is a copy of the sortable and filterable T6 ship list by Fleffel. I'll leave a link to this down in the description below. This is a very handy spreadsheet for just going and comparing some ships. So we see the Janeway came out March 4th of 2021 to the R&D promo box. That means it being a promo ship means that in order to acquire the Janeway, you had to pay 150 to 200 US dollars, and you would only get it for a single character. This Trailblazer being in the C store means that you have it unlocked account wide for a fraction of the cost, 20 to 30 bucks depending on if you get it during the sale or not, or even free if you have the T6 coupon. So as we go forward here, they have the exact same mastery packages I already went over, but it's the defense and mobility where there's a big difference. The power bonuses, there's a little bit of difference too, but I don't care about those, and I doubt most of you do. The Janeway does have more hull, but the Trailblazer in exchange has more shields. I think the Janeway in this comparison between, for the hull and shield capacity, the Janeway is probably going to win out because shields just don't do that much, in most content we do. The Borg just hit you with one tachyon beam, even if you really buff your shields up, and, well, your shields are gone. So for the HP, the Janeway wins out, but it's not that big of a deal. Mobility-wise, the Trailblazer is a little bit slower, but I did not notice that when flying it. It moved pretty well. The weapons, obviously, the Trailblazer has that extra aft weapon. And the Trailblazer can actually slot dual heavy cannons. So if I go in and double check this, because it says the Janeway cannot. And yep, the Janeway does not have the option to slot dual heavy cannons, whereas the Trailblazer most certainly does. So going back to the spreadsheet, same amount of devices, same console setup, and they both have secondary deflectors, they both have subsystem targeting, they both have sensor analysis. The only difference is the Janeway has a cloak, the Trailblazer doesn't. And, I know some people like cloaks. The cloak effect on these 31st century ships or 32nd century, whatever, it's pretty neat. I'll give you that. But the thing that it really boils down to from a performance point of view is that cloaking has a minimal impact on actual performance in a run. It's a neat gimmick for most people, but most people don't have the things to actually take advantage of cloaks because only Romulan players can actually take full advantage of the bonuses of cloaking. So, cloaking is cool, the visual is cool, but it really doesn't do anything performance wise. So I would say for most people, the Trailblazer is going to win out with that extra aft weapon, and and people are probably going to like it more because you can do all of the kit bashing with the other Voyager versions. So you can run the original Voyager skin or whatever. This Janeway class, these are not interchangeable, okay? If you want the Janeway appearance, you have to fly the Janeway. You can't make it look like a Voyager. Likewise, you can't make the Trailblazer look like a Janeway. So you can't make a Janeway look like a Voyager. You can't make, a Voyager look like the Janeway. So just know there are those visual limitations if you like the Janeway visual. I got a bit off track there, so let's talk about the trait. When you hit weapon firing modes, you will be given for a brief duration plus 50 Starship exotic particle generator. This is not a good trait. I will tell you. Plus 50 EPG is, what some consoles give, and I do not believe it is generally worth it to slot a Starship trait, of which you have very limited slots, for one console's worth of a stat boost. I really wish that the stat boost from the traits on these new Terran ships were more substantial, because plus 50 EPG is very little. Now let's talk about the console. The console is called Decentralized Immunity. So what I did on the live stream the other day was I did find that this console does have a cap for the amount of critical severity the passive on it will give you. The passive gives you a scaling crit severity bonus as you have more EPG skill. And for each 16 EPG skill you have on your build, it will give you 1% of crit severity, meaning that it caps out at 25% crit severity because it caps out at 400 EPG. So if you're on a science heavy build, and you want 25% crit severity, this is there for you. Some people may like it for that, especially being it's a very affordable console compared to some of the other ones out there. It's also got a passive plus 15% shield capacity on it for those of you trying to, maximize your shields for some reason. And the clicky on it will basically create a drone that will keep you alive. If you have ever dealt with a Nikul in space or ground, you know how they make that like clone of themselves? And you can't damage them, but you can damage the thing around them that is like their clone or whatever. This is somewhat like the mechanics behind this are similar. It's not making a clone of you necessarily, but this drone, while it's alive, will make it so you can't be so you can't be killed. It makes you immune to all damage while the drone is active, and the drone can be active for up to 10 seconds. So, this is actually a fairly good survivability console if you're in scenarios where you just need to have just let that thing be out there, and any damage you take won't hurt you for 10 seconds. This is a very good survivability console is really what that boils down to. Is it one that I'm necessarily going to run? No, because I don't do content where I need to worry about survivability. Everything I follow that DPS mindset of kill things before they can kill you. But for those of you that are doing some weird niche builds, or just doing casual content, or you're going into pug environments, then this console is going to be more useful for you, because that's just free survivability basically for those 10 seconds. So let's recap now. The Trailblazer is basically a clone of the Janeway promo ship that dropped just under a year ago. I would argue that it is a better version of the Janeway. You are losing the cloak in exchange for an extra aft weapon and a built-in agony phaser spinal lance, with the caveat being that agony phaser spinal lance is not going to do any damn damage for you. It really, I've tried it on both the this Trailblazer and the Lexington, and it does nothing damage-wise, basically, even if you're boosting up phasers. So this ship, arguably a better version of the Janeway, which was a promotional ship. This thing basically has, you can argue about the specifics, the hull being a little bit lower or whatever, but this is basically equivalent, and in some ways better, to a promotional ship that dropped just a year ago. and it's available for a fraction of the cost. It's available, account wide once you acquire it, whereas that promo ship at $150 to $200 on its own would only unlock for a single character. The trait is not that valuable because it's giving you basically one console's worth of stat boost for EPG skill. The console off the ship has some use cases. The crit severity on it can scale up to 25% if you're at 400 EPG skill. The clicky on it, as I said, can be very handy for survivability. I think it might be a good budget survivability console to help you get out of a sticky situation, but it's not necessarily going to be one that is going to be. I don't, well, at least I can't say yet if it's going to be like a meta tanking console, but I could see it potentially being one. But, that wraps up this video, and tomorrow I'll be talking about the Cygnus to wrap up the reviews on these new ships. Let me know if you have any thoughts on the Trailblazer versus the Janeway. I think personally it's very nice that we have ships in the C store that are rivaling or beating these really expensive gambling obtained ships like the Janeway. And I like that we have it with, a skin that is so iconic, because you can slap the normal Voyager skin on this and you don't have to have the mirror skin. You can make it look like your nice Voyager and it's going to do well. Now, let's talk about builds quick before I wrap up the video. So I set mine up as a meta torp boat. I've got the bridge officers up on the screen now. I'm not going to go over the entire build because my throat's about to give out. This is like the second or third attempt at this recording. It turns out that having the screen recording on helps when trying to do a video. So this is pretty much set up for like a meta torp setup, and I have my torp guide, which I will link up at the top right if you want to go check that out. It'll also be linked at the end of the video. That is largely what I follow, even for a ship like this. I did try out some consoles on this, but I would just stick to the established torp guide if you're wanting to do that type of build on this. Alternatively, if you're looking for something weird to do, I'm going to also link Sarcasm Detector's off-meta Psy-Tank build he put on his a year ago. He was tanking with the Janeway, and that exact build should still be very viable to do with this Trailblazer. So I'll leave this link down below also. This ship has the potential to do well with torpedoes, very well. With a layout like this in a supported environment, I don't see why you couldn't get a very high number. Not like competitive per se above 2 million, but I think it'd be pushing probably upwards of 2 mil, and it might get over 2 mil in a really good run with a good pilot and good supporting team. But I think it's a very capable platform. I think you have the ability to slot control abilities yourself while running a torp boat, so you can take this into the more casual or the pug environments and still do well with torps. You have the ability, the room, to also slot like a scatter volley build on it or some other do build. You have the ability to do a weird tank build like Sarcasm Detector did. This is a very flexible ship. The only thing that this ship probably won't excel at is science. Is the weird thing. This is a platform that I would say you can do science on if you really want, but it's not going to be the best for that. It's a platform that is going to excel more for a build that has science as like the secondary focus, I would say. Just you're focusing on your weapons with the science things being secondary. That is where this ship really excels, in my opinion. So I'll have the picture of the build linked in the description below if you want to see exactly how I had mine set up. It's not going to have all the traits and all that listed, but the torp build guide will also be listed if you need to see the descriptions and further explanations of things. But my throat is giving out. It is 3:32, and this video will be going out in about 2.5 hours. So I hope you enjoyed. Tomorrow will be the video on the Cygnus, which I've got some things to say about that one. So that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. See you all next time.